On this episode, I'm back with our Journey into Imagination series as I sit down with my friend Shannon Ford. Today's July 16th, 2024. This is episode 685 of the Main Street Magic Podcast.
Jeremy and Rhonda are more than a little fond of Disney World, so they made this podcast to share it all with you. Reports and resorts, top 10 lists of all sorts. Main Street Magic's bringing it home for you.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Main Street Magic. I am your host, Jeremy Stein, and I'm not joined by Rhonda today, but I will soon be joined by my friend, Shannon Ford. But first, make sure you check us out on the web at mainstmagic.com, as well as follow on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at mainstmagic. If you've not done so already, head out to Facebook and search for the Main Street Magic community and ask to join. And if you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, you get brand new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. If you're planning that trip to Disneyland or Walt Disney World, it can be overwhelming and at times just downright frustrating. But don't worry, because Mouse Dining removes the frustration of booking Disney dining reservations, alerting you when they spot availability for your desired restaurant, date, meal, and time. Visit msmfriends.com to use this free service. Shannon Ford was born and raised in Miami, so trips to Walt Disney World were a big part of her childhood. She remembers driving up to the Magic Kingdom or Epcot for the day, spending a few hours in the park, and then heading home. Sometimes the family would stay in a hotel near the parks overnight, but Shannon says it never really felt like a vacation. Her dad was a big Epcot fan, and she fondly remembers playing in old Epcot with him. Shannon met her husband Ray in college, and Disney continued to be a big part of her life through trips with him, and now they vacation with their son Ryder. Ryder's first Disney vacation was on Disney Cruise Line for his very first birthday. Wanting to make the trip a little more special, the family added on 3 days in the cabins at Fort Wilderness before their cruise departure. Shannon calls the full kitchen and living space a game changer and remembers thinking, this is how you do Disney. While the cabins at Fort Wilderness were not DVC back at that time, it did make Shannon and Ray realize there were other ways to stay at Disney, which led them to their DVC ownership. Please help me welcome Shannon Ford to the Main Street Magic Podcast. Shannon, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Journey into Imagination on the Main Street Magic Podcast. Welcome to the show. Again, you are a previous guest.
Yes, it's been a while though.
It has been, and I think we're going to try and have you on again soon because I know you have a stay at the new cabins coming up at Fort Wilderness in DVC, so I would love to get you back on once you get back from that trip and hear all about them because I don't know when we're going to get a chance to go check them out. So that should be awesome.
We stayed in a cabin when Ryder turned 1.
Oh, wow.
And ironically, that was the reason what convinced me to get into DVC, even though they weren't DVC at the time.
Yeah.
But I realized having a kitchen at Disney on vacation was a game changer.
Yeah.
So that was when I looked into DVC, and I literally came home and did a impulse purchase put a bid out on a resale contract, and they countered. I took it, and 2 weeks later I was under contract with DVC. So
that's
and now that they've been made DVC, they're not selling really great though, so that's going to be interesting. So I'm curious to experience them and see once they're now open if that helps with the sales, because I know the sales have been abysmal, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I can see that. I think there was so much pushback, not only, really from the DVC community, but the Fort Wilderness community, for folks that love going there, the way that we have now for, 15 years, I think, or so. We've been going there probably even longer, doing everything from tent camping to, RV rentals to having our own pop-up camper, all the way up to, the DVC, or not the DVC, I'm sorry, the older cabins. So it'll be interesting to see how they go. But so that's going back, over 7 years for you becoming DVC. Yeah. But I'm guessing that your love for Disney started possibly long before that. Where does your love for Disney come from? Is that something that you grew up with?
I think my mom said I went to Disney when I was 3 months old.
Oh, wow, okay.
And my birthday is, we're recording this in July. I don't know how soon it's going to go up, but my birthday is July 12th. So it was probably September, October of 1976. So,
Wow.
my brother was probably 3 at the time, and they had a trip planned, and my mom was a stepmom to my older sisters, and they that's what I heard, that I went to Disney like at 3 or 4 months old. So and that was Disney at the time was just Magic Kingdom, right? Yeah. There was that was it. And, but yeah, it was always a part, being in Florida and South Florida specifically. I grew up in Miami. It was always just a part of our life. I remember the second grade field trip. My son just finished second grade, which I can't even imagine him going to Disney World at second grade with his field trip.
Oh,
but
man.
It's bizarre to me. But we won, I think it was like the chocolate candy bar sale. I remember when you used to have to sail those door to door. So our class won, and we won a trip to Disney World, which was Disney World was Magic Kingdom. And I remember that was the first time I ever rode Space Mountain. I remember that. So it was always part of my childhood, and we would go to trips. And then my parents divorced, and I remember that's around Epcot was when Epcot opened. My parents divorced a few years after that. And I remember my dad taking us, because my dad really didn't know like what to do with us. So he would take us, and then he had a girlfriend who had kids that were our age. So he would take us, and we went to Epcot, and he kept always telling us that it was for educational, right? It was educational. Yep. And then when I became an adult, I realized, oh no, it was because there was alcohol.
Yeah.
It really became clear as to why we went to Epcot a lot. But yeah. And then honestly, I moved to New York in 2002. And I did not go to Hollywood Studios or Animal Kingdom until after I moved back in 2008.
Okay.
So because I didn't go to the parks for a long time because I was living in New York. And then when I came back, I ended up getting back together with my ex-boyfriend, who is now my husband. And one of our first kind of trips together when we started to see like if we were going to start dating was to the theme parks. And actually we went to Universal, but and then we started going, and we just love theme parks. We love Disney, we love theme parks, and we would go to Disney a lot before we were married. And then even when we were married, we would go a lot. And then when Ryder came along, it just changed the whole dynamic, because when you go with kids, you see it through their eyes. Yeah. And then every trip is different, especially when they're young. Now he's a little older, so now the trips are very similar, but I can think about his first trip was when he was a year. That was when we stayed at the cabins. And then we went 2 months or 3 months later, and it was a completely different trip because then he started walking. Yeah. And then we went 3 months later, and then it was still a different trip because every trip was different because they changed so much at that age. So, and then he's obsessed with Disney. He's a little Disnerd. He loves watching YouTube videos. He loves finding weird facts about Disney. And he loves if there's a glitch or something goes wrong in a ride, and then he makes me record it, and so I can send it to TPM Vids. Yes. Because he loves that. So our last ride on Splash Mountain, it went completely down. Everything stopped, the lights came on, and we went through the ride almost entirely with no music and with the lights on. Oh, wow. And I was sad because I was like, man, this is the last time we're riding Splash Mountain, and this is what it is. He was thrilled. Right. He was thrilled. So, but it was a little eerie, and I was like, okay, I guess it's time for a refurbishment. Yeah, right. Redo for this ride. But yeah, so it's I guess to answer your question, that was like a long-winded answer, but it's just always been a part of my life. Yeah. And I love hearing that. I grew up going to Disney, but it was about once every 3 or 4 years, and we made the drive from Maryland down. But it wasn't a lot. And, it wasn't until I moved to Florida that I really started to fall in love with it. So I don't have that history, of being super young and it being kind of ingrained, into my mind of going every year or more often. So I always love hearing people's stories and, where that love and all comes from. So does Ryder watch your YouTube? He doesn't watch my YouTube. He has his own YouTube channel. So we're trying to work out. It's amazing. We're working out, trying to do the last time we went to ride Test Track right before it closed. So he wanted to put a POV. So he has a GoPro. It was a little dark, so it didn't come out that good, but we're toying with it. But no, he does not watch my YouTube videos because my YouTube videos tend to be, I try to make them educational or informational for parents. Because I'm not a daily vlogger, it's not that daily vlog type mentality. I always say our trips to Disney are our trips to Disney. Like those are our vacations first.
Yeah.
I am just documenting our vacations, and that's kind of how my YouTube channel came about. So I'm documenting our vacations, and I'm trying to give a realistic expectation, because that's one of the things I don't like about a lot of the vloggers is that they give this pixie dust type feel of what it's like, and they try and do a lot of things that are clickbait. Not all of them, but a lot of them, and they give people an unrealistic expectation of what to expect in the park. So I try and give a realistic expectation, some tips, and sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's not. And it's just, I do try and put things on a positive spin. But because that's just the type of person I am, I try to see things in a positive light. But if there are negative experiences, I'm definitely going to voice them. So
yeah, and honestly, if anybody wants to see an unrealistic version of Disney, they can just watch Disney's marketing. I mean, because that's what picture they're kind of painting. But I love that he enjoys YouTube and creating his own stuff, especially at that age. Because that's something, like, it's something I wish so much that they would teach in school. I wish that you could have an entire course, maybe it's once you get to middle school or high school on, how to create a social media company, in that sense, or how to create a YouTube channel and how to be successful and things like that. Because, I think it's something that everybody can do, whether they want it as like a little hobby or side hustle, or whether it's something they want to turn into a, full blown type career. So I think that's amazing.
And I like YouTube now, because YouTube, if it's a kid's video, there's no comments. You can't comment on it.
Yeah.
And when that change happened, that's when we had started it before, but that's when I started feeling more confident in putting his own videos up, because I would see videos, like I would post things under his channel, and the negative comments were, I don't mind negative comments on mine, but I was really surprised how people could put negative comments on a kid's video.
I know. It's nice that they're building in a lot of those protection layers now.
I agree.
And making those different sides of, YouTube that's more family oriented, and then one that's more for, the rest of the world. So you were documenting kind of your vacations. I mean, if you go back, I mean, you've had an incredible life up to this point. Former Miami Dolphins cheerleader, Miss Florida USA 2002, Mrs. United States 2011, Mrs. Florida America 2019, Mrs. Universe 2021. Were all of those were all of those experiences something that led you into content creation and helped you with it, or like how did that come about? Or was it something like, hey, I'm going to document these things, and by the way, you obviously have a presence of being on stage at these different pageants and these things, was that something that made you decide to get into content creation?
The content creation honestly came about because I really wanted to be part of the Disney Parks Moms Panel, or I guess it was the Disney's Mom Panel at the time. Now it's called the Disney's, the Plan Disney Panel.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to be a part of that, and I kept applying, and I think I've only made it to round 2. I've never made it past round 2. And we went on a Disney, and I really had my husband had said, you should start a YouTube channel. I was like, no, I had no desire to do it. And then we went on a Disney cruise, in 2020. So right before the shutdown, in February of 2020, we went on a Marvel Day at Sea, and I had done some videos on my phone, but nothing really like for content creation. And then after the cruise, there were so many things, because we had cruised a lot on Royal Caribbean before Ryder. And we did one cruise when he turned 1, but there were so many things that were different on a Disney cruise that I wasn't prepared for. So many things that I wasn't prepared for that I learned. And I wanted to put that out there, and I didn't know where to do it. And I said, well, I'm just going to do a YouTube video, and I'll put the video. So I kind of made my videos into a vlog, even though they were, vertical and not horizontal. And I just got in front of my iPhone, and I propped my iPhone on, and I kind of talked about things I'd learned, things I wish I had done differently. And then my channel just picked up some traction. Now it's one of those that's like a slow, steady growth. I'm just under 30,000 subscribers now, but I started getting views on those. And then the shutdown happened. So when the shutdown happened, because like my first video went up on March 1st, 2020, and then everything, bad timing. So I started creating videos of things that, like, educational stuff about Disney, like, and then I started learning. And then I remember having we had done a room in the Boulder Ridge Villas.
Mm-hmm.
And I had picked this room. I had done the touring plans request, and we didn't get that room. We got the room next to it. And the room next to it was awful. The room, like, it was just like the best room was one room and the worst room was next to it. And they were both studios. And I was like, man, I wanted to create it. So I ended up meeting Len Testa in July of 2020 in Galaxy's Edge. And randomly, it was like the park was empty at that time because it was July of 2020. And I saw him, and that was when he had his long curly locks, and he was very recognizable. So I reached out to him and I said, I'd like to create these series of videos on how to request rooms and the best and worst rooms. Could I use your site and screenshot it to create these videos? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So that's when I started creating that series, which is called Best and Worst Rooms at Disney World. And so I have one on each resort, and that again also picked traction. So I try to make my videos, sometimes it's just daily vlogs, but even my daily vlogs are example, like we just went on the Icon of the Seas, Royal Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
So, things like one of the things we didn't go into St. Thomas so that we could go on their water park. Well, they had all the slides closed when we were in port, and they didn't advertise it. So it was like, okay, well, don't do what we did, because you're gonna, if you think you're gonna go use the water park and skip the port, you're not going to. So that's how I try to make my videos. We do use Genie Plus. We're going to happen to be there with the new launch of the Lightning or Lightning Lane Multipass.
Yep.
So I don't like being there the first day because I like to, again, like I said, it's our vacation, but again, I will use it as an educational experience and kind of teach people what we learn and tips and tricks as well.
Yeah. So a lot of your content, of course, is educational and informative, as you're saying. And then that content is either kind of reactive, like you saying, all right, well, all these slides were closed. Let me make a video about something we experienced. And then you have some of the videos that are proactive, that are, let me get ahead of something, or let me, talk about, something that's coming up. What's your process for creating that content? Like, for example, okay, you're talking Lightning Lane, Multipass, and Single Pass. I know you did a video on that. Yep. What's the process for that video? From you gathering content, do you then script something, and what does the editing process look like? How do you do your videos and put these together?
So I have a little set in my office. So I have a little office, and I have a set there. A lot of times when and you know this because you're in the content creation with Disney, we don't get any heads up. Like, there's no heads up. I knew this was coming, but this has been coming for over a year.
Yeah.
And we knew it was coming. So when it was finally announced, I was actually a day late in getting the video up because I just physically couldn't record. I do have a full-time job. I am a mom. And I just physically couldn't get the video up the same day as it happened, which would have helped my views if I had. But it is what it is. I think I did a thorough review, but I do. I usually don't create a script. I do an outline, and then I try and just gather my thoughts, do as much research, and then just talk. And as I've done my channel and gotten used to content creating, I've learned to be more concise when I'm speaking, because I can tend to ramble, which hopefully I don't do today, but I can tend to ramble. And so I try to be more concise. And then also sometimes I'll be like, oh yeah, I said that like 3 times, and I'll edit it out. Mm-hmm. So I try and make my videos so it's easy to edit. So I'll, stop and, record, stop, so I can just kind of make it easy to edit. And then, so that way it's when the editing process, because that's sometimes the hardest is the editing. So so that video was pretty easy to edit because it was just me sitting in front of the camera and just going through my outline. And then my outline are my timestamps. So I do try and put timestamps in my videos, especially when it's something like that. So that somebody, if they just want to learn about the Single Pass, or they want to learn about when it's launching or something specific, they can look at the timestamps and see what area they want to skip to.
Yeah. Wow.
No one wants to listen to me for 45 minutes.
well, everything that you just said, I mean, if anybody that's listening is thinking about getting into content creation, you just laid it out so perfectly, especially with an outline. I think like when we first started trying and we were trying to do, YouTube vlogging style videos at one point, and I just decided that isn't what I wanted to do. But, it was going to a park and just filming everything and then getting home and going, oh no, what do I do with all this? Like, but when you actually have that outline, whether you're at home or you're in the parks doing it, and say, all right, I want to do a video on this specific thing. So let me get the video. Let me get an outline of, I'm going to, let's just say it was something about a resort, I'm going to film the lobby. I'm going to film the amenities, the pool, and you actually break all those down. It makes it so much easier, because that was most of the reason that I gave up on it. Was I came home with, 3 and 4, 5 hours of just straight footage that I didn't know what to do with, and so, breaking it down that way, I think is just absolutely genius of having that plan, and especially the stops and starts, of doing these videos at home. I mean, that's just key. If you sit and ramble for an hour and you got to cut that down to 20 minutes, it's going to take you 5 hours,
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. So
the vlogging, I will say the vlogging is, because my channel is not like a daily vlogging channel. My Disney vlogs don't do as good, and that's fine. But I will try and, put a tie in, but I don't try and do clickbait, and that's probably hurts my channel. But I don't try and do clickbait. I try and, cover, obviously my Jollywood nights, because you and I, and it's so funny, we were both there, but we didn't see each other.
Yeah, I know.
We had different experiences, and that was one of my most popular videos because it wasn't a positive experience. And I've learned that when you do negative videos, those tend to get more views, unfortunately. But that's just not what I want to do. The YouTube channel is a side gig. It's fun. I enjoy it. It helps pay for our vacations. But at the end of the day, I have a full-time job, which I'm very happy with. I have no intention of leaving. So if YouTube was to go away tomorrow, then that would be fine. Like, I would be fine with it. So I want to stick to my personal belief and not have to, rely on trying to get clicks and views.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's another great tip for anybody looking to get into content creation is, there's the saying, put all your eggs in one basket for a reason. If you put your entire livelihood on being a content creator on one specific platform and it shuts down tomorrow, you've lost everything, as opposed to, doing it as something that's on the side or a hobby, or, spreading out what you're doing amongst multiple channels and sites and things like that, is super important, I think, for people that are getting into this type of thing. So, your stuff, of course, is educational, informative. You're obviously trying to give people knowledge, but what is your overall goal, and what do you hope to accomplish with the content that you're creating?
So, again, the original reason was to get that information out, like things I learned, because a lot of friends would come to me like, oh, what's your best room do you recommend at Disney World, at this resort? Where do I request for a cabin stateroom? Because now I do have best and worst cabins, cruise staterooms for both Disney and Royal Caribbean. Wow. So I was just like, so now I can just send them to a video, which is a lot, because everybody would come to me, and now I can just say like, hey, watch this video. And Genie Plus was a big one. I did a huge video on Genie Plus, and I will probably do one on MultiPass as well. And now I can just send them to the video of, this is how to do it. So that's probably also a little selfish, because not that I didn't want to help my friends, but it was like, it was getting a little repetitive, and I tend to go into great detail. That's just my personality. And then also it was just a way to vlog my vacations. And I will sometimes, have one pop up in memories, and I'll look back and like, oh my God, Ryder was so little, and he was only 4 when we went on this Disney cruise. And it was, and then recently, I think last week was 3 years since the restart for the cruising, and Ryder and I were on the first Royal Caribbean cruise out of the US. It was 3 weeks, and they said it's starting and it's going to be July 2nd. And I booked it. Ray couldn't go because he couldn't get the holiday weekend off. And, and even just seeing how different he was at 5 versus now he's 8. Yeah. And it's also just nice that I have all those vacations on, it's saved. So we can look back, which is wonderful as well. And then I did want to say, just add that this also kind of turned into not only lucrative. I don't make a ton of money, but I do make some, and we've had some great opportunities. But then I started getting products because of that pageant background. I started getting like beauty products, and I had posted a couple videos of reviews, and brands asked me to do some reviews, but it didn't really make sense. So about 2 years ago, I broke off and did a separate channel called Shannon Loves Makeup, because I do love makeup and I do love beauty. So I have a separate channel called Shannon Loves Makeup. And now I get a lot of makeup for free. I get a lot of skincare because I'm turning 48. So a lot of beauty brands are sending me their skincare to review and do videos on. Yeah. And it's even turned into where now I'm getting products that brands send me and ask me to create content for them.
Wow.
And so it's a couple, $100, $200 there, but that helps pay for these Disney vacations.
Oh, no, for sure. There's two things I want to touch on with that. One is those memories, and it's funny you bring that up because, Lacey, who's going to be 14, next week, we took her and a friend to Typhoon Lagoon on July 4th. And anytime I try and take a photo of her now, she has to put her hand in front of her face or make a stupid face, or, it's her style. She's saying, well, don't, and of course she's 14 years old, and she's saying, well, I don't want my picture on your Facebook or this and that, which I can understand. But right. I said to her, Lacey, the whole reason really that I want to take these photos and I want to post them to my Facebook is because I wake up every morning and one of the first things I do is I look at Facebook memories. And that's nowadays for a lot of us, that's our photo album. We're not using a film camera and getting it developed and literally sticking our, trip photos in a photo book and pulling it out every year and thumbing through it. It's those Facebook memories or, time hop or whatever from social media that I can go back and go, oh, here was July 4th, 10 years ago. And here's what the girls were doing, and here's what we were doing. So, that's one of the things and the reasons that I love to do it. And I love to go back and look at the content that we've created. I had very short-lived, had Kaylin and Lacey that were part of our YouTube videos. And it's so neat to go back and just watch those. I have them saved on my hard drive, and sometimes I'll just pull that up and go back and watch it from when they were Riders age. And just remember those things. And then the other thing that I think is so cool is, a lot of people want to get into something like podcasting or YouTube's because they think they can make money off of it. They don't understand how hard that is, to actually monetize something like that. But what you've also been able to do with those products, and my sister-in-law and brother-in-law who are traveling the country in an RV, they're an RV family now. They've been doing it for over a year. It's something that they do with their content is it affords them the ability to connect with these companies who will give them product, and so you can look at it that way too. And I'm not saying people should get into content creation because they want free stuff, but
right.
It's just another level that I think, people tend to overlook. My thought is if you are going to go purchase these products or these makeup products or whatever anyway, that's money out of your pocket by them sending these to you for you to create content on. That's technically putting money back into your pocket. It's something you don't have to spend. So I think that's something I tell anybody that asks me about doing a podcast. I'm like, do you want to do it to make money? And if they say yes, I'm just like, all right, well, don't. Yeah, I wouldn't bother. Yeah, don't. Honestly, just don't. Or go ahead, but I'm not going to give you any additional advice. I think it's great that you have that same mindset. With all of that and all the content creation that you do, what for you is the hardest part about content creation?
Editing.
Yeah.
Editing. I still use iMovie because I have a Mac and I purchased Final Cut Pro probably 2 years ago. I still yet to use it.
Same.
I just, I learned iMovie. It's easy, and I probably don't. I use Final Cut Pro, and I've heard it can enhance it and make it even better. But I just don't have the time to learn a new software and then managing two channels. So That's probably the hardest, is just, I mean, I still have one more video to edit for our Icon of the Seas, and we went in March and it's July.
Yeah.
It's just, because like I said, I'm a mom and I have a full-time job, and if work gets busy, and work became unusually busy for a variety of reasons, and I had to just put my channels off to the side. And that's hard sometimes because I put so much work into it, but at the same time, it's okay, that's not going to pay my mortgage. So it's hard to kind of lose that momentum. And, but you just have to, you have to have your priorities straight. And I would say, kind of touching on what you mentioned, is that you notice that the people that really make it in content creating are the people that didn't start to make money. Like, they didn't want to do it to make money. They just, whether it's a beauty vlogger or a Disney vlogger, most of them started because of a love. Even Tom Corliss, who, has WDWNT, he started because he loves Disney. You can tell that he loves Disney, and he's created this great site and website and vlog that, but it all stemmed from his love for Disney.
Yeah.
And I think you can take that from anything. So whether it's your niche, and so like my niche is family content, right? It's family trips, trying to give a realistic expectation, and trying to help other families with kids, give them a realistic expectation, how to do Disney, Genie Plus, which Genie Plus, we learned that it was, you stack all day and then you go in the afternoon and you close the park. Well, now they're changing it on us. So we're going to figure out, like, that's probably not going to work with the new system, but we'll see how it works. So trying to give those types of tips, because we learned the hard way. The first time we did Genie Plus, we tried to do it where we went first thing in the morning, and we realized, okay, that's not going to work. You don't get anything done that way.
Yeah.
So, but again, it comes out of a true love of Disney and love of trying to help other families, give them those tips and tricks to make their vacations better.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I think that's how your podcast is too.
It is. Yeah. And we always say, and you obviously have the same mindset, that our number one goal is to help people on their vacation, have a better time, save money, save time, enjoy their trip. Like, that is our number one goal always. Anything else will just fall into place. If eventually that, makes us money, then great. But if we change and say making money is our number one goal, then we lose sight of everything, and the content's not, like, we don't want to chase content, which I guess brings me to a question, with the constant changes at Disney, is there a part of you that loves that because it fuels your content? Like, you're always going to have something to talk about, right?
Yeah, not really, because like for this, I mean, we had learned Genie Plus. I didn't really like Genie Plus. I'm the one that's always on my phone. But I learned to use it to our advantage. This new system, there's a lot of things that I do like about it, but I don't like that it's being launched on July 24th all at once. They obviously didn't learn from the Park Pass reservation opening up, where everything crashed that day, and it took us 8 hours to get our Park Pass reservations. I'm pretty sure everything's going to crash on July 24th. I will be shocked if it doesn't. But no, because if I was local and this was more of a full-time job, or even like a more dedicated part-time job, or a part-time gig. But like example, when the word came out with multipass, I just couldn't record. I recorded that video at 11 o'clock at night. Yeah. And the night that it came out, I didn't get it up until the next day. But at that point, everybody had already heard about it. So my video's got about 1,000 views, which, is not great for that type of video. Usually that would get, because that's not used long-term. Yeah. So I try to make my content where it has, it's something that's going to be relevant. Like room, for example, picking your best room at Disney. Well, the rooms don't change. Yeah. They may get refurbished, but the sizing of the rooms that are a little extra large, those extra large 1-bedrooms at the Boardwalk villas, those aren't going to change. They might get refurbished, but the size of the room isn't going to change. The vaulted ceiling and the ceiling that I kept hitting my head on at Boulder Ridge, that's not going away. That room is still going to be the worst room at Boulder Ridge, because you're going to hit your head all week. So that's what I try to focus on my content, where it's going to be, it's not ever changing, because those time sensitive videos aren't really where my channel thrives because I'm just a smaller channel.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you know, it's hard with all this because unless you are a full-time content creator, there's such this, you know, first culture,
Yes.
where, you know, everybody wants to be first, and a lot of them don't worry about being accurate as long as they're first. They figure I can be first. And
Yes.
if I get some stuff wrong, I'll just make another video in a couple days and I'll explain it, or I'll do whatever. But you know, I think it's another one of those where you look at it, and your channel and your videos are done so very well, and they are super informative and,
Thank you.
you know, educational and all. But you can tell that you put a lot into making sure that they are accurate, and that, you know, you'd rather have that info. And what it comes down to a lot of times, and it's very hard as a content creator, I think, to sell, is yourself, you know,
Yes.
because you have to say to someone, all right, we're going to give you the exact same information that hundreds of other people are going to give you, but you should watch ours because it's us, you know. And that's a real, I think, fine line. And it's hard to, you know, distinguish yourself from a lot of other creators when they are able to be first. You know, I think it's one thing that we've said is, you know, living, and we're only 2 hours from Disney, but being 2 hours from Disney is a major roadblock in us turning this into something bigger. You know, we can't drop everything and be at a park in 15 minutes. Even if it is to say, all right, multipass and single lane don't come out for a couple of weeks, but I can actually record my video inside Magic Kingdom about the changes, you know, gives this sort of presence and everything. So it's certainly something that's hard to combat, I think. So you are a national spokesperson for celiac disease awareness. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with being gluten-free amongst Disney and how it compares to, I guess, kind of, you know, the world in general in your everyday life, and then some of these other places that you visit or cruises that you go on? How does that all work for you, and what have you kind of learned from this whole process?
So for Disney, I'll touch on Disney cruising. I'll touch on cruising in general because we like I said, we do cruise, Disney Cruise and Royal Caribbean. Those are the two lines that we go on, and I think they're very comparable. I actually have a video on comparing the two lines because I think depending on what your situation is, I would recommend one or the other. And but they're very similar. They have very similar processes. You know, you can, if you go to the buffet, which is not recommended if you have celiac disease or you have an allergy, it's not recommended to go to a buffet. But you can have someone go around and tell you what you can eat, what you can't.
Yeah.
Risk of that is cross contamination. So usually, you know, try and sit down, or a lot of times they will go in the back and prepare something for you. And then also, you know, for the meals at night, like in the main dining, what you do is, and both lines are the same, you order your meals the night before. So you'll see the night before main dining room meal, you'll go to your waiter, you'll place your order. And if you don't do that, they can still make you a gluten-free meal because they do have dedicated kitchens on board the cruise lines, but it will take longer. Yeah. So when you pre-order your meal, you could also, maybe something can't be made gluten-free that night, but if you tell them the night before, they can make it gluten-free. So those are types of tips. Now in the parks, it's actually Disney is great with the parks, and I would say Universal's not bad, but it's not nearly as easy as Disney World. Disney World does now have, even on the mobile app, they have gluten-free. So, and they have like an allergy menu, so you can even order. That was something that when they first launched the mobile app, that was not something they had initially, or it was very hard to order.
Yeah.
So now you can. The one thing I will say is, if you order an allergy meal, don't order them order two separate meals. This is a tip that I do point out, is don't put them on the same order. So for example, if I'm ordering at Connections Cafe in Epcot, I will place my order, and then I will place a separate order for my husband and my son. The reason why is because my order would be made in a separate kitchen. So they'll prepare mine, and then once mine is out and ready, then they'll start preparing Rays and Riders.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of times I'll wait 20 minutes for mine, they'll serve mine, and then I'll have to wait another 10 minutes for Ray and Rider.
Yeah.
So what we've done is I've learned that the hard way, and that's how they work in the parks, which makes sense because those gluten-free meals have to be prepared separately. So we just do them separately, because that way Ray and especially Ryder can get his food, because usually we eat when he's hungry.
Yeah, of course.
So that's how it works. So that way he can get his food. Because a lot of times, there was one time at Cosmic Ray's where we waited another 25 minutes for Ryder's food.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, just because they forgot. And they're like, no, you got your order. I'm like, no, I got half my order, So it was 2 times in one trip that I realized, okay, you have to do it separately. And it was actually that manager at Cosmic Ray's that said, she was the one that told me order them separately, and it would be better off for us for that. So that's a little tip, but even sometimes I forget to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow. And how's your experience been on some of the other cruise lines? Is it pretty similar with, I feel like everywhere now, any restaurant you go to, they're so sensitive to these types of needs. Are the other cruise lines pretty
well, it's just Royal Caribbean. We don't really cruise other than Royal Caribbean and Disney, and Royal Caribbean is probably where we cruise most, and Royal Caribbean has always been great. But I've heard through Pack Your Pixie Dust, who is she's a travel agent, and she's also DCL podcast. Christy, she's also celiac.
Okay.
So she does a lot of good, and even right before I go on a cruise, she does a lot of Royal Caribbean too. She does she'll give like some tips, and she's the one that told me a great tip of ordering. There was a side dish on the Disney Wish in the 1923. She goes, order this, it's gluten-free, it doesn't come with the steak, but ask for this, like I think it was the scalloped potatoes or something.
Yeah.
And it was the best tip, because it were the best potatoes I think I'd ever had in my life. But so those types of tips. So I would say, like, follow. I'm not a big foodie. People always ask, like, why don't we do more food reviews? And it's basically because if you want to watch people eat grilled chicken and vegetables, it's not going to be that entertaining, because that's pretty much, we do try and eat fairly healthy. And then usually, like on a cruise, we'll go out like all out the last day, but we're not big foodies. And then we try and eat healthy, which doesn't really make for the best content.
Right.
Like we'll cover it and we'll show it, but we don't really get into depth, because we like everything. Like I'm not going to tell you like, if, this is cooked good. It's like, yeah, I like it. It's good. That's, it's fine. It's like that's about it.
Well, you stick to your strong point, which makes total sense. Cover the things that very, very well. I have one more Shannon specific question before we have a couple fun questions from the hat for our listeners who are doing makeup, doing hair to go into the parks. Do you have a couple tips or products you recommend? Especially, you're going here in 2 weeks in July. What are some tips? Because Rhonda gets asked this a lot, for folks with makeup, hair, things like that to make it all day in the parks.
So I actually have a video, and I need to do it again, is how I did my makeup in Walt Disney World. Some of the products that I originally used are no longer, they've been discontinued, which was really upsetting. But I go full hair and makeup. So that's one thing. I do go full hair and makeup, and there was a couple reasons for that. Well, the main reason is that is Disney and cruising, but specifically Disney is really the only time I get family pictures.
Yep.
Because usually it's me taking pictures of Ryder, or maybe Ryder and Ray. Or a selfie of me and Ryder. We rarely get, thank God for PhotoPass, because that is how we get family pictures. So I do have full hair and makeup. So I would say, depending on your skin type, so know if you have dry skin or if you have oily skin. A lot of people don't know what type of skin they have. So I have a primer, a makeup primer that's also an SPF. It's from Charlotte Tilbury. And so, but there's a lot of good ones that do have SPF. So don't wear an SPF on its own. Get one that it's a makeup primer, because there's quite a few of them, even from the drugstore. I think Milani has one that's pretty, affordable. That will help make your makeup last, and then it will also protect you from the sun.
Yeah. So
that's one tip. And then one thing I do especially during the summer months, I have combination skin, so my skin can get oily, but it's not too oily, is I dust powder, like the loose powder, before I put my foundation on. And that just helps kind of create a barrier for the oils, so they don't break through as easily. And then I do, use a setting spray. So a setting spray does help. And then I have a setting spray. It's from Naked Sundays, and they sell it now at Target. And it is a setting spray that's also an SPF. So you can use that when you need to reapply your SPF. You can use that as well. And then I also have a powder that's also an SPF from a brand called CL Cosmetics. Now that one is a little pricier. You can get that at Sephora, but it's a great SPF, but it's also a great powder. So again, you're getting your sun protection, and in July or anytime in Florida, you've seen it in Disney World where you see somebody and they are burnt to a crisp, and you're like, oh, awful. I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's the worst feeling. I usually carry an extra SPF, and I've been known to give out, like, just give them a bottle of like, here's your sunscreen.
You're a lifesaver for that.
Yeah, I get it at Trader Joe's. Like, my little spray bottles, great. Trader Joe's has great SPF, or Aldi also usually has some sometimes during the summer. And I've been known to just, like, if I see somebody, and it's usually like someone from like the UK, you're like, oh, you're not used to the Florida sun. So I've given out a couple bottles of sunscreen throughout my time in Disney World. But those are some tips. But I think knowing what works for you. Yeah. If you're not a person that wears a lot of makeup, don't wear a lot of makeup. I have a really great mascara that's from Cali Ray. It's sold at Sephora, and that stuff, man, I was in Typhoon Lagoon in the wave pool, and that stuff did not budge. Wow. It is so waterproof. Now the problem is it doesn't come off. You need, it takes a lot of makeup remover to get it off. But when you go on Splash Mountain, you're not going to look like a raccoon after. So those are a couple tips. But just, go looking like yourself, but don't be afraid to wear makeup in the parks, because I know a lot of people are afraid to wear it. Yeah. But then also don't feel like you have to. Like, some people are like, I can't wear makeup in the park. Then don't. You don't want to.
Yeah. Those are great tips. And I know a lot of listeners were jotting down notes during that. All right. Well,
but that reminds me, I will probably need to do a video when I'm there. I'm going to try and record it while I'm at Disney World. Yeah. And I'll probably, maybe, I don't know which channel I'll put it on, but maybe I'll put it on both. But because it needs to be redone for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, everybody will be sure to keep a lookout for that. Well, we're going to move on to the hat, and we'll pick a couple random questions out of here. If you could have any Disney World job there is, what would it be?
Ooh.
This one's always fun.
Yeah. Let me think. I'd want to be a cruise director.
Oh, that would be
I
fun.
don't know if you said Disney World, but I'm going to go with it.
I mean,
that would have to be like before I was married, or if I could bring Ray and Ryder on. Yeah. But I think the cruise director, I mean, you work 24/7. That just seems like fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I always think back, I'm like, if I was 20 again, before wife and kids, there's so many things I wish I'd done. Imagine doing that even for 1 year of your life, and that was it. Just imagine how much you would learn and experience. So anybody who's young, look into things you're probably not going to do when you're in your 40s and have a family.
Or maybe even, like, I would think, like, being a princess on the cruise. Yeah. Like, because you've been on the Disney cruise. When you see those little girls and those little kids, and I remember Ryder, like, when he was 4. Now he's a little bit older, and I just make him take the pictures. But especially when you see the little girls that love Tiana. Yeah. And especially, like, that's one of the reasons why I was not upset. I love Splash Mountain, but I was not upset about the change because I saw firsthand when you see a little girl of color and she sees Tiana, and she sees all the other princesses, she likes them, but she sees Tiana because Tiana looks like her. Yeah. And you see how important it is. So so maybe that too. I don't know.
Yeah, we saw that in the parade. And it brought Ron and I both to tears. To when Tiana's float comes around. It's just amazing. And what I love about the cruise with the characters that's so different than the parks. Like, when you go to the parks and you see the characters, you feel like you're in their house, you're visiting them. But on the cruise, it almost feels like they're just another guest, like if you were to see, your favorite actor or actress or music, pop star just happened to be on the cruise with you, and and people kind of formed around them and wanted to meet them. Like, it has a feeling like you're kind of all just guests on the cruise. And
now, what's the longest Disney cruise you've done?
We've 4 nights we did the Magic. So we are looking next. We're probably going to try and expand to 5. We'd love to do a 7. A lot of it is so hard with Rhonda because,
It's expensive.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I mean, I can work from anywhere, and I can technically say, I want to take next week off. Therefore, I'm just going to bust my butt this week, and I'm going to do everything for next week. And I can kind of sit back and relax. But for Rhonda, when she doesn't work that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at those 12-hour days, not only are we spending money on a cruise, but then she's losing 3 days worth of pay. She doesn't have PTO and paid days off. So that's the only reason we haven't even really, looked at a longer cruise, but we're going to try and figure out some ways and, try and move around that.
I would say is the longer the Disney cruise, the longest we've done is 5 nights, which was that Marvel Day at Sea. And Ryder was 4, and Ryder was at that age. He was, he's still a pretty cool kid, but at 4, he stole the show.
Yeah.
And he also let me used to dress him up. Now he doesn't let me dress him up anymore. It's sad. But the characters were his best friends. Spider-Man saw him, and he had somebody had given him a Spider-Man toy the first night, and he carried it around everywhere. And
so awesome.
The characters and they're all the entertainment crew, right? So they're all chatting. They all know. So we ended up seeing Spider-Man. So he had been carrying the Spider-Man, and he ended up losing it at Rapunzel's royal table. And the ruffians were helping him look for it, and they were literally looking under the tables. It was quite embarrassing, but they were amazing. And by the time we got to Marvel Day, it's the Marvel Day. Spider-Man, he's like, "Are you Ryder?"
Oh,
and he's like, "I heard it," because he was carrying around the Spider-Man toy. And he just thought by the 5th day, Spider-Man was his best friend, because and to the point where Spider-Man, we saw him the last night, and he's like, "Where's Ryder?" And we're like, "Oh, he's at the Adventure Ocean." He goes, "Well, go get him. I need to say goodbye to him."
Wow.
So we had to pull him out. And I mean, I have these amazing videos of Spider-Man walking us, holding his hand while we're walking behind him, and he's walking us to our stateroom. Wow. And then the princesses knew him, and I had him get little chocolate bars, and he wrote we had little gifts that he gave all the princesses when he met them.
Yeah.
And one, it was a way to give the cast members in the cruise a little gift, but it was also him to show you give stuff, it's nice to give. So it was kind of like a double and did benefit to it, and they all loved it, and it was just so they knew him. And they knew us because of it. And I've noticed that on the 3 nights, you don't get it as much because it's such a short cruise. But the longer cruises, and I've heard for a 7 night, it really becomes like that. So, but we definitely experienced that on the Marvel Day at Sea.
That's incredible. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And after we did the 3 night on the Wish, I'm just like, I will never do a 3 night again. I mean, you get on the boat, and the next thing you know, you wake up and you're getting off.
Yeah.
It's just such a blur. 4 nights felt pretty right, but I feel like 5 nights would be truly a sweet spot, of the amount of time that you want to spend. And I love days at sea. That's actually my favorite day is the day at sea.
Totally. We never got off at Nassau.
Yep,
and honestly, the last time we were on the Wish, that was when there was a hurricane, and we actually didn't board until 6:00 at night.
Oh, wow.
And it was not the best. This was in November of 2022. And we skipped Nassau because there was no Nassau. They ended up skipping the port because we weren't going to get there in time. Mm-hmm. And then we decided just to skip Castaway Cay, because we had been to Castaway Cay. We had been on a cruise maybe 6 weeks before. And we're like, you know what? We really want to be on the Wish. This was the second time we were on the Wish. And we really wanted to go on, the Aquamouse and do all the things. And it was an amazing day to see because everybody gets off at Castaway Cay. No one stays on the ship at Castaway Cay unless they can't.
Right.
So it was, we were literally going on the Aquamouse, getting off and going back on again. I mean, it was just amazing. I think we rode it 4 times in a row with awesome. Just to walk on. I mean, maybe there was 5 people in line, which was amazing. So, now, we'd missed Castaway, but again, we had been to Castaway Cay and we had no regrets doing that. I like 3 nights because usually it's just a weekend. Mm-hmm. we do a lot of 3 nights, but also we live in South Florida, so we just jump on the ship. We have been known to get pick up Ryder from school and go on a cruise. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, I grew up in Maryland, so I think it's just, I have this mindset, like my kids and Ryder, I'm sure, like they can't grasp or understand how incredible their childhood is.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't go on a cruise until I was almost 40 years old. Like it wasn't something I ever did. And again, a trip to Disney every couple of years if I was lucky, and we'd go to the beach. But like, I don't think that our kids in that generation can truly appreciate how just incredible they have it, especially living, by a port or a couple hours from a theme park like Disney and Universal and the whole Central Florida area. It's just, and I try and tell them that. It's so funny. I was watching Stranger Things with Kaylin. I finally started it. Like I'm the last person I feel like to ever start.
I haven't watched it. So you got me there.
It's so good. But I mean, the whole place takes place in the 80s, and I was born in 79, you were born in 76. So we both grew up in the 80s, and every like 10 minutes I would pause it and I would just talk with Kaylin. Like, did you know that's how it really was? Like, do you know how good you have it that you don't have to do these things? And of course that's coming from people that grew up in the 80s. You can go talk to our parents and they're going to tell you a whole other set of things. But it's funny that, and I think it's so cool. I think it's cool that our kids get to grow up in this environment and this world in these areas. There's a lot of other areas that I wish they didn't have to, and we could go back to the 80s, but that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah. We do try and tell Ryder, try and tell Ryder, how lucky he is. And, I wanted more than one kid. It just, he was IVF and he was my miracle baby, and it just wasn't in the cards for us. But then I look back and I think, wow, we wouldn't be able to give him the childhood we are giving him, because even something like Genie Plus or MultiPass, I don't think I could pay for it for a family of 4 every day.
Oh, yeah.
When it's a family of 3, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
But when you're talking a family of 4, and I know you're in that situation, you have to be more frugal, because it just adds it makes it just, everything's more expensive, and you have more tickets and stuff. So, I mean, even right now, our annual passes are the pixie dust. We have the weekday pass. And that was because for a long time, that was the only pass you could get. And when they opened it up, we're like, you know what, we're fine with this one, because we don't really like going on the weekends anyway. It's too many people.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what we do. And we work around it, but that way we can afford the other things.
Yeah. And it's hard. Our girls decided a couple years ago, and it was their decision to not be annual pass holders anymore.
I remember seeing that post and I was just like so heartbroken for you.
It is. And it's heartbreaking, but on a positive side and a positive spin, it has given Rhonda and I an opportunity, as far as content in the show goes, to do more things, because, we're not having to pay for 4 people. It'll be a lot easier to stomach, the Lightning Lane multi-pass and single pass and figure it out without times 4, or, our annual passes every year and things like that. So, we certainly miss them being there, but, much like you and Rhonda's our positive spinner, she always puts the positive into everything, the way that you do. We kind of look at it that way. We're doing things that we couldn't do as a family of 4, but we've had that experience, so we can still speak about it. And like, we're going at the end of the month, we'll have to talk offline, because I think we're going to be there the same time you are for a couple days, possibly.
Awesome.
And we're going with a friend and her 9-year-old daughter. And like, I'm so excited to like be with a 9-year-old kid again and watch them experience the parks, and all these things. But I don't have to pay for her, so that makes it, even better. What's a Disney IP that you don't think is well represented in the parks and you'd like to see come to life?
Tangled.
Yeah.
Tangled.
Yeah,
and Ryder is, his name is Ryder. My son's name is Ryder.
Mm-hmm.
I had never seen the movie, and his name is spelled with an I, so it's Rider. And I had never seen the movie, but before he was born. The bathrooms, it's the best bathrooms on Walt Disney World property, but it's such a, I think to me, it's the best Disney film out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love. Mine was always Princess and the Frog, but we've got that now. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you. I'd go on with Tangled. Well, here's a good question that I always find interesting the answer. You know, do you feel valued as a Disney World pass holder? And you know, whether it's just now compared to the past or it's just now in general, do you feel valued being a Disney World pass holder?
I wouldn't say I feel valued, but I don't say I feel unvalued either.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I think there's some perks. I think for Disney Vacation Club,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I happen to be going when there's the Welcome Home Week. So there's those events that are happening that are starting the week that we go.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll be able to participate in that. But, you know, a lot of times, you know, with Disney Vacation Club, there's a lot of like Moonlight Magics and stuff, but a lot of times you just can't go because if you don't have a trip planned,
right,
you can't go.
Yeah.
And then you also have to be a direct member, which we're locked in. We have 25 direct points, but that was before you had to buy 150.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's great.
I wouldn't buy direct just for the perks.
Right.
You know, I will just say that.
Yeah.
But I don't feel unvalued. But you know, that annual pass holder lounge at Epcot, I did get to experience that. That was amazing.
Yeah.
That was absolutely amazing. And we went and you know, to have the genie and to have those pictures with the genie, that was much better than the DVC lounge that was at Epcot. That is going to be reopening soon, so I'm curious to see if any changes or if they did to it. Very much looking forward to the DVC lounge at Magic Kingdom. I think that's going to be amazing whenever that opens. So I would say as a pass holder, I don't feel unvalued, but I don't necessarily think all the time.
Right.
I would say that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's hard to not look back at some of the things we used to get. Like I remember they used to do when they first introduced that, you know, very important pass holder, VIP pass holder, technically. You know, I remember that they had the special nights that, you know, you could reserve, because we did Typhoon Lagoon one night that was specific to the VIP nights. And, you know, the things that you used to get during, like, I've got this set of 4 etched glasses from, I don't even know when it was. Wow. It might have been like 2007 maybe, that you got at Epcot, you know, and we've got the cutting boards that actually Kaylin uses every time she eats strawberries. She pulls out our little annual pass holder cutting board. Like
I have the coasters.
Yes. Yeah. We have those too. And it was, so it's hard not to compare back to that, but I do think that they're listening and they're doing more where they can with the thing like the lounges, you know, and I know a lot of people scoff at getting a magnet, but you know, I think that
I love the magnet.
I love them to death. We have every single one. And if I were to ever not get one, it would break my heart, you know, and I'd probably end up buying it on eBay just so I had it. So yeah. It's hard to not look back at what used to be, but I really do think that they're heading back in the right direction of showing their pass holders that they value them with some of the things they're doing. So
the only time I will say I was really disappointed, and it wasn't because I was a pass holder or DVC member, but that Jollywood Nights and just, you know, if you want to, you can go by YouTube channel, Shannon, you just look up Shannon Ford Jollywood Nights. There's videos, but you know, the experience that we had that night. And now we actually had a pretty good night compared to most, but you know, at the end of the night, they had a bunch of content creators there and they were allowing them to cut the lines. Yeah. And they were allowing them to cut the lines of kids that were waiting to see characters. And then the rain came and my son didn't get to see Phineas and Ferb after waiting for 45 minutes. Oh. But we would have, if they hadn't let 3 content creators cut the line and spend 5 to 10 minutes and while everybody else waited. Oh. And that's where that's when I realized this was not, and I didn't blame the content creators at all. This was because they were being led by Disney PR. Yeah. And I did speak to Josh D'Amaro's assistant. Mm-hmm. And they ended up refunding. I never asked for a refund. But they did refund us. And I even said, I'm not asking for a refund. She's like, I'm refunding you anyway, which I wasn't going to say no. But you know, that was the only time. And I did hear that they have listened. Obviously they made a lot of changes to Jollywood Nights, and that was not because of me. That was just because of they knew it was bad. They knew it was bad that night.
Yes,
but it was, you know, it was like that should not happen. Like you should not, you know, have a preview night, you know, for content creators where you do it, you know, that's if you're going to do that, have a preview night where you get a test run of things and you get the content creators and they get the content and then you have them put it out that night or do something.
Yeah.
But don't just be detrimental to the experience of the paying guests for you to get content.
Yeah.
And that was the only time I felt unappreciated, because usually our experiences are pretty positive. That was the only time. But again, I did voice my opinion and I did get a call back from Josh DeMar's assistant, and hopefully that I just don't want that to ever happen to any other families.
Yeah. And I think you raise a good point, of going and sharing experiences, and there's a very different, going back to, you were saying about negative content does better, but I think that there's such a difference between being honest and being negative.
Correct.
Being honest is saying, here's my experience. This is exactly what happened. And people can pull more out of that, what they want. Negative is more going, Jollywood Nights sucked. You know what I mean? Like, but seeing more of the light in. But I think it is important that people do voice their opinions and experiences without expecting anything in return. It's going to guest service and simply saying, we just want to let you know that this was our experience, and leave it at that.
Right.
And because Disney will take note of that. Do you plan to check out Jollywood Nights this year?
I think so.
Okay.
We're planning on trying to get to the Halloween party. Ryder's at that age. He's almost 9. He'll be 9 later this year.
Yep.
And he's getting to the age where it's, I know the time is limited as far as him wanting to go with us and really enjoying those things. Now he is immature for his age. He is a boy. And I think boys are just relatively more immature, but he wants to go to the Halloween party. He wants to be Oswald. This will be the 3rd year going as Oswald.
I love
That's
that.
his favorite character. But then we talked about the party, and he said he wants to go to both. We didn't do the Very Merry Christmas party last year, but we won't have annual passes. Our annual passes expire in November.
Yeah.
And we're not planning to renew right now. So I think we might do a weekend and do both parties. So that's what we're trying to figure out right now. But yeah, that's I think so. And but I will say, don't go to the party the first night.
Yes.
And that's we only went the first night because that was our trip. And that was the week that we were there, and it happened. And that was why we ended up doing it. We never would have planned to go the first night. And I will avoid the first night like the plague.
Yes, agree completely. And it's something that we learned ourselves, because, and not that we've ever tried to be part of the first culture, but our thought with Jollywood Nights last year was, let's specifically go to the first night because A, it's brand new, and B, there's not a ton of them. And
there's only 10 and one got canceled.
Right. Exactly. So we thought, all right, if we're at the first one, then we can really help people, who are going to go to any of the remainder ones. And we learned quick. We're like, let's not do that again. Again, people can either, if anything, we'll do a preview and say, hey, here's what's coming, or we'll just say, we're going to go when it works for us. And then we'll talk about it.
Right.
So yeah, we definitely learned that lesson, but I agree. First night.
We did try and go early, just early in the dates because it's just cheaper.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Like we're looking at Labor Day weekend for, I think it's the August 30th is what we'll probably do for the Halloween party.
Yeah.
And then we go to what we did last year's. We go to Universal. Yeah. So we'll go to Universal. So we'll do that one night. That's what we're planning on. But yeah, so I love the Halloween party. It's so much fun.
It's the best.
I love the Christmas party. I love Christmas. I'm not a Halloween person, but man, the Halloween party is so good.
Agree. Yeah. Halloween party made me a Halloween person. Like in that sense, like I never cared about Halloween at all. And then we went to the Halloween party and I was like, oh, I kind of want to decorate the house more. I kind of, I want to do this every year. I want to go all out. I want to get dressed up. I want to
I still don't.
It's something. All right. I got one more hat question and then a rapid fire and we'll close out. That sound good?
Yeah.
All right. How do you feel about the term Disney adult?
I think it's a negative connotation to it, but I kind of get it because there are some people that are a little annoying. But at the same time, let them be who they want to be. Yeah. I can see, people, and I will say for South Florida, we don't do the parks like South Florida. Like I'm telling people, no, we're going to Disney for a week. Mm-hmm. What? You're going to Disney for a week? Because most people here just go for a weekend.
Yeah.
And they go first thing in the morning and they'll go to 2 parks a day. And that's how we used to do it before Ryder was born. nobody to be a Disney Vacation Club member in South Florida is unheard of.
Yeah.
Because most people in South Florida just go for a weekend. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how we do cruising. We'll see a good deal on a cruise. We'll jump on a cruise ship. We won't do that at Disney, because Disney, you need to plan.
Yeah.
So so I can see the term Disney adult. I think if you're a Disney adult, wear it with pride. I do see where people see it as a negative, but at the same time, you got to be you. If people see negative in anything,
oh yeah,
and a lot of times I think it's just because they're jealous. If someone's talking bad about a Disney adult, it's probably because they're just not happy in their life, or they don't have something that makes them that happy. I have 100 Disney ears, right? Mouth ears. I'm actually kind of not into it right now, and I'm debating on whether or not I'm gonna, get rid of my collection or downsize, because I just don't wear them as much anymore. But for a lot of times, people were like, "I can't believe you have so many." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, fine. It makes me happy.
Yeah.
It makes me happy." And some people it's shoes, some people it's clothes. For me, for a long time, it was mouse ears. It's just do what makes you happy. And if people see it as a, negative, then that's fine. But I do see the term can be negative.
Yeah.
But again, where the only thing I would say for some Disney adults is when you have kids, and I remember scouting out a park, a parade route, and then having some, what would be Disney adults cut in front of us and think that they could sit in front of my child or stand in front of my child who's 3.
Yeah.
That's kind of annoying, but I would say that's the exception, not the rule.
Yeah. And I think in those instances, it's, you do you, as long as it doesn't hinder somebody else's experience.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think a lot of it comes too, for folks that, term the other people Disney adults, is sometimes a misunderstanding or just lack of knowledge about, Disney and Disney World, because, again, Disney's marketing is all surrounded around still really families and children. And so I think there's still a misconception for a lot of folks that don't know Disney that it is just for kids or families. Why would right now Rhonda and I, two almost 45-year-old adults with teenage kids who don't go anymore, why would we put so much of our life into it? Because they don't, a lot of folks don't know what else there is. They don't know about the fine dining and something like Jollywood Nights and these experiences. So, I think there's a lot of still misinformation out there for folks that just don't know Disney.
We try and do a different experience each trip. So this trip we are doing Hoop-de-Doo, just because we're staying at Fort Wilderness. We have done it before. Yeah. We did it right before the pandemic. So excited to do that. We're actually doing that the first night. But we're doing a Wild Africa trek, which again, that's an experience that I don't think most people know.
Yeah.
One of the things, I am a certified scuba diver, so I do want to do the scuba dive in Epcot. So that's kind of on my bucket list. So there's a lot of things to do at Disney that a lot of people don't know about. And again, what I told people and what I mentioned earlier is we learned that we take it easy in the morning. Ray usually goes to the gym, works out. I sleep in, I have coffee, do whatever. We chill, maybe if there's a community hall or whatever there is at a resort, go to the pool, do something. And then we go to the parks in the afternoon and we close. We used to take naps. So we used to come back and take naps, but that was when Ryder was little.
Yeah.
But now, we leave the park at 1:00 in the morning and he's like, "Why are we leaving?"
Yeah.
But that's how we enjoy it. And it feels more like a vacation that way for us. And that works for us. It doesn't work for everybody, but find out what works for your family and works. And then the beauty of going every so often, we are going less. We're probably getting down to 2 trips, maybe a year, 1 or 2 trips a year. And right after this trip, we really don't have a long trip planned. We have the parties planned, but that's about it. It's just that if something's closed or, something breaks down, it's not a big deal. We'll just ride it next time.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of it. We did go back. Like I mentioned, I did do a surprise trip with my son for Test Track. Because he was sad when it was closing. That was one of his favorite rides. Mm-hmm. So when he heard it was closing and we hadn't ridden it since November, I did surprise him with a day trip to go ride it twice before it closed, 2 weeks before it closed, which was great.
That's awesome.
But which is a special time because it was just him and me, and it was exhausting. I was exhausted. But it was a really special trip for him and I. And the bright side, we got to see Phineas and Ferb. They were randomly at Hollywood Studios. So it all came full circle.
Yeah. Oh, I wish there was more Phineas and Ferb.
Well, we were there the day that they closed the park early for that Adam and Levine like corporate event. So they closed it at 5, and let me tell you, the park was empty. I had bought Genie Plus. Rise of the Resistance was a 10-minute walk on, and we had gone to the park to just ride 1 or 2 rides, and then we were going to drive home. I'm like, oh no, we're staying.
Yeah.
And they had characters out. They had Max. They had Goofy and Max meeting. They had Donald. And I mean, there were characters everywhere because they were really, that's where I realized, okay, Disney's, they know that the park is closing early. They know people are paid full price for this ticket, and they're making it worth their while. I mean, there were characters, you would turn and there was another character. That's awesome. They were with PhotoPass photographers. It wasn't just characters out on their own. They were, no, Phineas and Ferb were not. But it was amazing to see them, and we got to do a dance party, and we got a better experience than we would have at Jollywood Night. So it all came full circle.
That's amazing. That is great. All right. We're going to go into some rapid fire questions for you. And we're going to start off first with, what is your favorite Disney snack?
Ooh, that's hard just because I am celiac.
Yeah, I think this is going to help a lot of folks, actually.
Yeah. There are gluten-free churros at... what's the place? Oh, I can't think of it. Not Tiffin's, the lounge.
Oh, Nomad. Yeah.
Nomad. They have gluten-free. They have gluten-free churros. And I wish Christy from DCL Podcast had never told me that, but they are amazing.
Okay. All right. I might just try them next time. We have a really good friend of ours that we go to Disney a lot with. We meet up with them, who's gluten-free. And so we've learned a lot about it, and we always try some of the stuff that she gets just to give a comparison. The one thing, surprisingly, we actually liked better gluten-free than the original. Now, it didn't have the caramel sauce, is the bread pudding, from Ohana, or you get it right there from Tambu Tambu. It's really good. Yeah. So you can actually get that bread pudding gluten-free. It just won't come with the caramel sauce.
Okay.
It's outstanding. What is your current favorite Disney park?
Ooh.
Because I know that changes sometimes for a lot of people.
Yeah. It has been, oh God, it's really whatever park Ryder wants to go to, and his favorite
I was
park
just going to say,
Epcot.
I was just going to ask what his was.
His is Epcot.
Okay.
His is Epcot.
That's awesome.
But I think Magic Kingdom, and especially with Tron and now Tiana's, it's probably going to be Magic Kingdom for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Your favorite attraction?
Ooh, Tron.
Okay.
Tron or Cosmic Rewind, but Tron's up there.
Oh, it's so good. As everybody says, I just wish it was longer, but that's how good it is, and
we pay the extra lightning lane because we like to ride it at night, and the only way to guarantee you ride it at night is to do that lightning lane. Yep. And it's like you're paying $1 a second because it's $60 for 3 of us, and it's $1 a second, but it's worth every second.
Oh, 100%. Let's see. What is your favorite quick service restaurant on property?
Ooh, the Regal Eagle.
Okay. Favorite table service or signature?
The Cinderella's Royal Table.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Favorite resort? That could be DVC or non-DVC.
Old Key West. If you're in a 1-bedroom or more.
Yeah.
But Old Key West, yeah.
Your favorite Disney character?
Rapunzel.
Okay. And finally, for the rapid fire, would you rather do a Disney cruise or visit the Disney parks?
Disney cruise.
Yeah. I'm kind of leaning that way, and I never thought I would be a cruise person.
That's just because I'm gotten old.
Yeah,
and
I can see that.
I mean, I have to work out before. I have to bring. I mean, I'm the person that has to bring muscle cream for the day after the parks because I have to. Otherwise, I can't walk the next day.
Yeah.
And I work out, but it's a different. You're using different muscles.
It's completely different, and especially when you put yourself in that heat and the sun. Like I know for me, the sun just drains my energy like nothing else.
This is the funny thing. I used to go to the parks when I was dating Ray. This tells you like the difference between before and after dating.
Yeah.
I used to go in like 4-inch wedges. And now he's like, you used to wear wedges to the parks. I'm like, yeah, no, I got the ring on it. That was it.
Yeah.
But I don't know how I did that. And now I'm like, now I've done videos on the best sneakers to wear in the parks.
Oh,
life has changed.
and here's the thing. And again, that's why, information and education and channels like yours are so important because those are the things that people don't think about. Same with somebody going, I bought a brand new pair of shoes. I can't wait to wear them at Disney. And you say, all right, have you broken them in? No, I'm going to wear them day one. You're like, oh, you're making a huge mistake. Walk miles and miles before you ever get to the parks and break those suckers in, or you're going to be miserable. But it's those types of things that,
and even like a stroller.
Yeah.
I know some people are like, oh, you got to get a jogging stroller. I'm like, are you ever tried to fold a jogging stroller trying to get on a bus? No.
Awful. And same thing with kids' ages. I mean, we had the girls in strollers, years past anywhere else in the world at Disney. And I remember, I think Lacey was 8 or 9 at a time, and we had not brought a stroller, but our friends did. And she was in that thing more than their kids were who were younger.
The trip in June was the first time I didn't bring a stroller for Ryder.
Yep.
We always brought one. Like last time, he was just before he turned 8, but we would park it at the front, and we didn't necessarily have it the whole time.
Yep.
But if you're staying till close, and the park closes at 12:30, I'm not carrying that, a 65-pound kid to the car.
Right. Yeah. Or your stuff, for things
that's
you're
where
buying
now I have to carry a backpack. That's the sad thing, is I have to carry a backpack because I don't have the stroller. I miss that. I miss it.
We got out of backpack stage because that was us too. And I look back now and I'm like, man, I'd keel over and die. But this was, a decade ago. I mean, I had one of the big Disney backpacks. I loaded it with pins that we were collecting. So, you put 100 pins on a backpack, that's adding weight. Then we had, it was when they first came out with the Yeti water bottles that had a screw off top. And they're like, I don't even know, 30 ounce, something like that. And we had each of those filled with ice water, and they went in both sides of the backpack. And then, we had all the kids stuff. And I'm like, how on earth did I ever manage with all that? And now, I went to the park the other day and I just had my wallet in my pocket, and it was like the most freeing thing ever. It was just
I got this thing for the cruise, and I need to make a short. I made the short. I just need to edit it. It is called My Cap. It's CAEP.
Okay.
And it's a phone holder, and then it also attaches. You can wear it as a wristlet, or you can wear it as a kind of a crossbody.
Oh. But
it attaches to your phone, and then you can wear your phone kind of like a crossbody.
Okay.
And I bought it for the cruise because they also have like a little wallet attachment. Yeah. That is amazing to have. It was really great to have on the cruise because I had that where I had my phone. It was just across me. But then anytime I wanted to take a picture, I needed to grab it. I didn't have to pull in my pocket. I didn't have to feel like I needed to reach in and get it. It was just, it was there. Then plus it was easy to keep, like my key to the world card, or, my key card was there. But I used it in the park when we went in June, and I was like, oh, this is fantastic. It is really great. So okay. I need to get in more colors because now it's amazing. And I was afraid it was going to fall, but it's really secure.
Okay. And
it really is. I have to make a video on it and I paid full price. I didn't get that one for free, but man, it really made it. Especially with the phone, because I have an iPhone Max, so it's big. It doesn't always fit in every pocket, and so that's been really good. But no, I'm moving out of the stroller, and then I'll have all my camera equipment. So I do have to have the backpack. So I'm trying to see if I can get a smaller backpack, but it's going to be hot. So we're going to be changing clothes and stuff. So we'll see. We'll see.
Well, I do want to wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
You've got that coming up here on the 12th. So happy birthday. And this episode will go out right around that time. So everybody can wish you a happy birthday. Go ahead. I know you've talked a little bit about it, but plug your YouTube channels, your social media, anything else you want to plug. Go for it.
So my channel is Shannon Ford, and it's easiest way to find me is Shannon Ford Disney, because there's a Shannon Ford that's a reality TV star. That is not me.
From American Pie fame?
She was on the Kristen Cavallari show.
Okay.
And she was a redhead. I used to be a redhead, and she was also a pageant girl, so people confuse us a lot of times. I have gotten called from Us Weekly when there was a little scandal with her, but that was not me. That was always interesting. They asked me if I was dating Jay Cutler, and I was like, nope, sorry, I'm married.
Oh, wow. Luckily Ray didn't get that phone call.
Yeah. Oh, he would have been like, I wish he was, man.
Yeah, right.
But so Shannon Ford, and then my beauty channel is just Shannon Loves Makeup. And then you can find me on TikTok and Instagram. I'm not that great on both of them. I'm trying to get better, but it's Mrs. Shannon Ford there. Okay. Just no dots, just Mrs. Shannon Ford on both of those. I'm on Twitter too, or X, but I barely use it. I usually only use that when there's Disney news and I'm trying to find it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So,
well, Shannon, thank you so much. I'm
no,
so glad you were able to join me.
This was so much fun.
This has been just wonderful for me as well. So thank you. Happy birthday. Enjoy your trip. And we will have you back on to talk about the DVC cabins here very soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thanks. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. And again, thank you, Shannon, so much for coming on. Of course, if you want to keep up to date on all things Main Street Magic, you can follow us on social media at MainST or search for the Main Street Magic community in Facebook and ask to join. Then go ahead, hit that subscribe button. You get brand new episodes every Tuesday and Friday, and Rhonda will be back for the very next episode. As long as you're out on the internet, checking out Shannon's socials, watching her YouTube video, subscribing to our show, you might as well leave us a rating and review, because as you know, it helps our show grow. That's all we got. We'll see you real soon.
Jeremy and Rhonda are more than a little fond of Disney World, so they made this podcast to share it all with you. Reports and resorts, top 10 lists of all sorts. Main Street Magic's bringing it home for you.